but we'll kind of skip that. But it was actually, I don't know how that came across on the phone, but at 3 o'clock this morning, it seemed like a funny thing to do. Anyways, all right, state the practice. Before I get started, though, most would leave this for the end. I don't want to. I want to thank some folks up front. I think I've got 22 slides, which I'm going to go through. We're going to answer questions, take a lot of questions on, but there's a lot of folks that played a role in delivering this. So, some heartfelt thanks are going out. Let's see. So, Shane Ackerman's been working. He's an IT technologist. We know that we've done a lot of work with the practice realignment surveys. A lot of that data sits within the structured SQL Server infrastructure within our business. So Shane's been helping me get access to that data so that we can provide practice managers with the necessary analytics behind where we set it as a practice area for everything. Corinne really helped me with a lot of market research. I did a lot of market research on my own, but one of the things that I was extremely grateful to her for, she leveraged some of the new capabilities that she learned after the post-acquisition of RG Gov Access, and she helped me, one, validate all the research that I did, but she did bring to me some things that I myself didn't find. It just clearly, it's another illustration that not one person is going to ever have all the answers. As is typical with my presentations, there's capitals everywhere being dyslexic, but Christy Davis kind of did a strong proofread for me, and Alan Carpenter doesn't know it, but he provided me with a specific article which I'm going to reference throughout the practice presentation as it relates to movement in the market that he kind of helped identify as well as one of his customers. And I couldn't have done any of this stuff without Eric and Meryl, because the development of the training curriculum for PI is very important, and I kind of offloaded a lot of that work to them so that I could focus on this, and we've reintegrated some of their slides and where it's going to go. So let's go ahead and talk about practice at a glance, our table of contents. Now, I've asked every practice manager to deliver along the same philosophical constructs, and I'm asking each of them to rate themselves and their practice in 3 methods. Simple stoplight, positive, things that are on track, on schedule. If there's an element of caution, I've asked them to rate it, and if there's obviously a level of risk, I want to know what it is, and I want the employees to know what it is so we can collectively go after it and tackle it, okay? So what we're going to basically look at is where we are from a rating perspective within practice management. I think we're strong. Our practice at a glance is strong. Our talent review is strong. Our position and posture, I'm going to consider it's positive, but from a competitor analysis and market trends perspective, we don't have the Gartner memberships that we used to have. So when we're talking about getting additional information, I pulled out a lot of stops to get things from outside the firm. Corinne went through and did a lot of research too, but we have to find new creative ways to innovate ourselves, and we can't take no for an answer. From our tools analysis, we've got a lot of great information about the tools that we have at our disposal and where they're being used. Key customer-facing initiatives, we've got a lot of them, but I'm not happy with the element of sales support activities that we have. A lot of that is tied to our business development engagements, and if we had more of those, we could do more. So I don't think it's not a risk, but it's certainly something we can improve on. Key ongoing internal programs, we've got an employee education and development. We're going to review the practice management timeline for enterprise architecture. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about RG Gov Access, but really it's going to come down to we've got some risk mitigations to kind of go through. Okay. Does anybody have questions before I go on about the rating factors and kind of where we see it? Does anybody have any questions as it relates to any of the kind of things on this slide? I'm going to talk to them in detail, but if anyone has questions, we can kind of jump in on.
I haven't had any questions come in, and they're all still muted, so they can't ask on the phone.
Okay. All right, moving right along. So practice management at a glance. One of the things I've asked every practice manager to do is to define a mission for their practice, okay? What does that really mean? Enterprise architecture certainly has a definition, but I think if you were to go into a purist, one of our competitors, and say, hey, this is what we're doing with practice management, many of them were like, well, that's not practice management, because we're doing a lot of new, innovative, and creative things leveraging best practices and disciplines. But what we're really looking to do for Robin's Joy is to serve as an impactful catalyst, okay? what does that really mean? We're implementing organizational vision and strategy capabilities into the business. We're creating new operational process models for our back office application architecture, and we're bringing together market metrics in terms of how we're measuring ourselves. And we're backing them up with frameworks which give us the elements of traceability we need. So this represents our mission statement for practice management, okay? It has an internal component and it has an external component, okay? From a leadership perspective, we are a Tier 1 practice, which means we are seeing a little bit more investment than some others. I'm the practice manager, and I have 2 leads, James Wong and Meryl Idzikowski. All right.
You did well.
Good enough. Anyway, so we've talked a little bit about what they're doing, and they're really supporting with the development of new capabilities, new service offerings, retooling of service offerings, solution management, so on and so forth. Enterprise Architecture Center of Excellence Architects. We believe that certification, as a governing body and a certification body, because of its position with the Zachman framework, it really nicely positions us against any framework within the industry. So at present, these folks represent the individuals who carry the certification within Robbins-Joya, and we're going to talk a little bit about where those folks are working and what they're doing. One of the things that I'm really happy about with this list of folks, you see people there from defense, you see people from commercial, you see new practice managers. I mean, we are really kind of represent what the power of the firm is structurally meant to be. We don't consider ourselves working for a business unit. We work for the power of every business unit, okay? And we kind of move folks around. Ken Boris is now working at GSA. Several months ago, he was working with Customs and Border Protection, okay? Shane Ackerman, as I mentioned, is working on the back end to build our business systems. Al McColl's working on, I mean, he's also maintained a very large element of billability. He's supporting new customers in cybersecurity, yet still managing a cybersecurity practice. Sean Fairweather is working with the Army. Chris Samolsky is with the Air Force. James Wong is leading our CMMI. It really kind of cuts through and captures the essence and the importance of the institutionalization of enterprise architecture disciplines within the business, okay? The final thing we're going to look at is where our senior expertise is. Everyone has taken part in the practice management realignment exercise in the fall, and I need to take some criticism for that because I was unable to get all of the data compiled in order to get it into the employee profile system based upon me going down to Montgomery. So we're really taking an aggressive step to kind of kick that off and re-energize that, and we hope to have the prototype available and released. But one of the things that you're going to see here is everyone went through the process and everyone rated themselves. What I then did was I went through and I looked at the ratings, and then I did a value-based analysis based upon their resume, and if there was something that I felt was out of alignment, I did an interview with those folks, okay? So let's go ahead and take a quick look at expertise by the numbers. Now, this is very telling for us, and this is a very confusing graphic, so I'm going to walk you guys through it. But our high-level expertise are things that fall within the range of 7 to 10, okay? What this basically means is that only 16% of our employees fall within that superior range. Out of 185 employees queried at the time, only 158 of them fall within the ranges of 1 to 6. That's a problem, okay? So our goal is to double those employees who fall within the 7 to 10 range in 2015. And we do that by delivering brown bags, certification programs, educational opportunities, mentoring, like Tony Garbarino's emailed everyone about, asking for mentor volunteers. We can't do this alone, okay? So what does this actually really mean? If we looked at some of the service offerings, let's just take the first one, IT strategy and information systems architecture planning. We have 8 employees who fall within the 7 range, 12 within the 8 range, 9 within gray, and then 2 within would consider themselves to be experts. Of that, there are 28 folks. That represents only 15%. And as you can see, based on service offering, I can say that enterprise architecture fast track for mergers and acquisitions, it's not something that we've aggressively marketed. So we're not going to have expertise there. So that makes me ask, do we need it? Should we have it? Should we maintain it? I firmly believe that enterprise architecture could really help a lot of the problems that come with mergers and acquisitions, but we're looking for a market niche of where to kind of illustrate that value. So the numbers that you see represent the numbers of employees that are dedicated within the 7 to 10 range. And then obviously the second number is the percentage of the total to RG employees. Collectively, it's an average of 14.1 employees collectively. So we've got to increase that number. So I'm looking for, when we do the realignment assessment survey in the fall, we're looking for folks to fall within, we're looking for 60 folks instead of the max of 30 within audit and review, as well as architecture and application planning, okay? But this is how we're defining who we put on engagements. We've got to stop as an organization, pounding square pegs into round holes. It's about empowering you to do what we're best at and empowering our organization to grow and to learn, okay? Does anybody have any questions as it relates to this? I'm getting a head nod from Lindsay, and this is a lot of data, so go ahead.
So the question is there feedback where we can see where we individually fall within this total framework that we can use as a visual for personal development?
Did Shane ask that?
No.
The answer is yes. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of a prototype, okay? This is a good thing because I can kind of go off script if I want to, and I'll do that really fast. This is not available for public consumption yet because we're still working out a lot of the bells and whistles, but let me show you guys a draft or the prototype of the employee profile system, at least the landing page. So, Shane, I hope this is it in EPS. I think that's it. So, for example, our new employee profile system, which is not public and it is secured, let's go ahead and just take a look at myself. This way here we don't have to look at anyone, and we'll say, where do I fall? The main landing page, what we've done is we've taken all of the practice exercises and we're using an algorithm. So based upon where you rate yourself and where your practice managers subsequently agree or adjust your rating to, give you the ability to understand where you sit. So if I look at business analysis and I mouse over it, you'll see that I've got experience delivering agile requirements management. I did that for 5 years at the Navy, okay? Center of Excellence Technologies, discovery and planning. I'm not the best facilitator when it comes to requirements. So I'm looking at this, it really kind of cuts through and captures where we are. So each individual will be able to subsequently go in and see where they're rated. This is the beginning bare bones of the employee profile system. This is what we use from a solution design management perspective when we're trying to staff an engagement. For example, if we're using the process, I'll say this. Let's say, for instance, we were doing an acquisition capability analysis. I am not the guy to do that. I should not be delivering that service offering because I have no tactical experience with it. What's critical is when you guys rate yourselves, you do so honestly. I've seen the run of the mill. I've seen folks that were rated themselves extremely high, and I've actually seen people that didn't think very highly of themselves, but I ask you guys to consider your years of experience and follow the instructions when rating, okay? The closest we can get, the less overhead we have to put into practice managers to get this stuff right. But we got to stop pounding square pegs into round holes, and I'm really hoping that we can have this prototype available probably in the next quarter. We simply don't have the IT resources we used to. There's a virtual business card here, and you can actually see work history. As we're transitioning to Synergy 2.0, this is the prototype. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. So let's kind of bob and weave off of that. I appreciate the question, though, and it did give us the ability to illustrate that we are making progress in that, and you'll see that a little bit later in the slides as well. Okay. Competitive analysis review. Here's what I'll say about that. We are positioned, but we need more data. We've talked about the limitations that we have with regards to data and research, and acquiring ArcGov Access has given us some great capabilities, and Corinne was able to really help me hone in on specific information as it relates to competitors in our market. So we're going to break those down into 3 chunks: large companies, mid-sized companies, and small companies. So this is kind of where things are. From left to right, everyone on the left side of this line is considered to be strong and leading based upon the size of their organization. So when you think about IBM, they're one of the leaders in enterprise architecture, due in most part to the existence of one of the best tools on the market for enterprise architecture, which is System Architect. Deloitte, KPMG are also considered strong leaders. You've got folks in the large company, in the large quadrant that are kind of, we consider them to be fringe. They're available, they're out there, but it's not part of their core mission philosophies, but they're there, and that's Accenture, CSE, HP, and Booz Allen. In the middle tier range, okay, we actually see companies like HCL and federally funded research program development corporations such as MITRE and MITRE and RAND Corporation, okay? The interesting thing about federally funded research and development corps is they have an unquestioned competitive advantage in the game because a lot of what they get is competition free, because they're deemed to be not for profit. I have an issue with that, but I guess that's my problem. But we compete against them every day. But here's a great story. The business analysis and the ABA delivery team that's over at Veterans Administration, MITRE was part of the folks who were escorted out of the building, and our folks were maintained. So it shows that we can deliver and we can compete with these federally funded organizations, okay? And Deloitte was also, if I'm not mistaken, Deloitte was also exited out of the building. So we have capabilities. And while our brand is not strong, and our brand is strong, and it's not historically known for EA within the EA community, that is changing, okay? We do see a fair amount of 8A small business trends as demonstrated by emerging presence in companies like Copper River and Red Cedar. Red Cedar was our primary competition on the Transcom proposal. They were backed by Deloitte, and Copper River has the enterprise architecture support contract for down in Montgomery, and we have the enterprise architect supporting NextGen, but we integrate with them on a daily basis. So one of the things we fight against is the transition of our contract being given to Copper River because they're an 8A small business. We have to become disciplined and deliver strong capabilities, and that's what Nate Briard is really down there doing, and he's carrying the torch to do that, along with Chris Samolsky down there. But that kind of gives you some competitive analysis of where we sit in the marketplace. Now, where does Robbins Joya sit? I think we're kind of somewhere right in here. It's still an emerging capability for us. While we had it as a practice area years ago, it lied dormant for many years. We've made some investments from a certification perspective, but I look at what we're doing with it from a business perspective. We find ourselves in that middle tier quadrant, kind of on the lower end. We need to make additional investments to get to the 60 folks, because I mean, when you only have 14% of your folks who think they can deliver something, it's probably not the best thing. So that's one area where we need to focus. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the that market analysis piece and kind of where we sit and where we're at?
No questions. Okay.
So market trends. I'm gonna go back to last fall at the GPS conference. One of the things we did was we had a panel that I had kind of worked with. I had facilitated it, but we did it in part with a lot of different folks. But we brought in some customers. My past customer from Naval Intelligence. We brought in Greg Giddens from the VA, and we had a panel discussion on delivering outcomes and kind of what they were doing with enterprise architecture and requirements management. And some of these slides, I would consider them dated, but they're not so far dated that they're out of whack because it is all from 14. But I wanted you guys to see this because this really cuts through and captures, in my opinion, the essence of why it's so important. When you look at the national debt spending and the projected spending through 2020, you got to consider the percentage of gross domestic product that we have and where we're spending. What we've been doing is we've been doing this massive amount of deficit spending, and where enterprise architecture what it really helps you do is eliminate redundant spending, because it provides you with the illustrated capability and traceability to buy what you need and not what you don't. Implement what you need, all of a system, as opposed to 5 to 10% of it. So if you look at what happens on or about 2006 with the collapse of the housing crisis, we started spending like drunken sailors as a nation, and then and President Obama's just continued that. So the problem is, when the housing crisis hit, we lost 1/3 of the tax revenue of this nation. Where do you think they're getting the money? They're printing it, or it's coming, or we're borrowing it from China. But our organizations, seriously, I'm not lying. Hey, I'm telling them the truth. So the concept is our customers are being asked to do more with less. we're not going to be able to deliver that capability through simple program management. It's just not going to happen. It's going to come through discipline requirements analysis and disciplined enterprise architecture. Okay, that's what is at the core of our EA2 capability area. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at how our market has evolved. In 2000, we were spending $80 to $145 billion spent on failed IT or canceled IT projects. Okay, this is information that was published by Standish Group and updated in 2014. So we were looking at a failure rate of 28%, 26% succeeding, and 46% kind of somewhere in the middle. And that was in 2000. Okay, so let's go back and look at where we were in 2000. We're, our deficits, our debt spending was at its lowest. Okay, so that's kind of where we were. So the green are things that were successful. Yellow were challenges. They were completed with schedule and budget overruns with fewer features than capability specified. A great example of that is one of our own programs, folks. It's the ACE program. Alan Carpenter would have to give you the exact, because I have so many numbers in my head from time to time, but I know that when ACE was being considered for cancellation, they had delivered less than 1/3 of the functional capability, but they had spent the entire budget over a 15-year period. That would be considered a failure or a challenge. I mean, they're delivering, but they're not. They're somewhere in that mid-range, okay? Look what happened in 2014. Program performance and financial ROI is on the decline. Successful was down 6%. Challenged went way up. Failed, going through the roof. The reason why is they're not doing the disciplined enterprise architecture and requirements analysis on what they're trying to do. Instead, they were trying to throw money at problems. There was no discipline. There were no frameworks for success. There was no connection of strategic plans to operational excellence, okay? So this is a clear indication of why enterprise architecture is valuable within the industry, okay? Does anybody have any questions as it specifically relates to how our markets have evolved? I think I've got one more slide on that. Let me go through make sure that I've got anything I've got here. And I do have one more. So market trends continue. There's never been a greater emphasis on cost, schedule, and performance in our market. There's never been, okay? And the financial analysis models that we've kind of put together illustrate that. What it's created is unprecedented focus on outcomes, and we must deliver better illustrated value to our customers. I was on the phone with Rick Agopsworth the other day, and he goes, Chris, one of the things I used to do was I used to take money from people in the federal government when I was there. I would find out who wasn't delivering and who didn't have an illustrated value proposition, and I worked to take their funding. If we lose funding on a project, that affects our employees. So there's no better way for us to illustrate and provide the need of illustrated better value than that, okay? It happens every day. Funding gets moved. So again, we need to focus on unprecedented outcomes and better focus on illustrating value, okay? Cost, performance, and schedule. EA disciplines are being leveraged to bridge the gap in traditional strategic planning activities. Our own strategic plan is based and backed by EA disciplines and principles. We've seen CMS merge offices of strategy and architecture. One of the things that, and this is the article that I was referencing that Alan Carpenter had come across, the whole concept was it's a future of the CIO role. It was a forecast and a projection of how the market's changing, and that EA is becoming the bridge between strategy and execution. Okay, you can't go into most strategic plans sit on a shelf, as do architecture, but architecture gives you the disciplined, illustrative traceability to execute on. Okay, so these are real things that are happening every day within our organization. Our own customers are seeing the value. Okay, we're seeing continued use and development of vertical specific centric frameworks. DODAP, for example, is something that's leveraged strictly within the Department of Defense, and also some within Homeland Security, based upon the fact that elements of DHS specifically become operational components of DoD in times of war, so they have to maintain operational readiness against two different frameworks. But corporations like Accord, they have a reference architectural framework that's specifically tied to the successful integration integration within the insurance industry. Okay, again, it's a vertical specific centric framework that we've got to bring into alignment within our own tactical go-to-market strategy, and we're doing that. We're kicking that off this quarter. So I think that's a great new ad. The discipline of EA is being leveraged in new, innovative ways, and I think that's one of the best, strongest takeaways that we can have. These are non-traditional uses of enterprise architecture that are creating new value stream channels for our customers. I like to say it's not your mother's EA practice. It's kind of different, right? So does anybody have any questions on the market trends and things that we've identified within our own customer base, but also externally? I consider this to be yellow because I don't have time to do the research every day, and we can't have Corinne doing it all the time. But what we've really got is a very solid foundation on which to build on for the fall in the state of the practice presentations, but also kind of illustrate and give us a certified way forward as opposed to just throwing a dart at a board. Does anyone have any questions about the market trends?
No questions.
Okay, let's go on to our posture and tools analysis. This is, I rated this kind of green because I was extremely happy to see some certain things. Any of you who are currently tactically involved in delivering enterprise architecture disciplines understand that we have tools at our disposal. So one of the things we've taken a look at is the Gartner report for enterprise architecture tools. It's broken into 4 quadrants: challengers, leaders, niche players, and visionaries. So we talked about IBM being one of the primary competitors in the space, a mover, a shaker, a leader. Why? It's because of System Architect. They have a tool that they can use to deliver their services, okay? They probably know their tool better than anybody, okay? And you see a lot of these other vendors that fall within the leader category within Gartner's quadrant. We do have 5 System Architect licenses. We distribute those licenses from the practice on an as-needed basis in concert with customer needs. So I actually have one, Nate Briard has one, and Chris Samolsky has one to support the Air Force in the DODAF modeling that we're doing there. Carol Drew has one in support of commercial engagements, and Ken Boris is using it within GSA. So again, we're distributing the licenses across the power of the firm. Yes, Chris, Nate, and I have 3, but we're all actively engaged in doing enterprise architecture and DODAF framework creation and validation for a customer. We do have a 5-pack license for DODAF, but there's only 3 of us that need it right now. For instance, if Carol were to deploy someplace within to support a DoD customer, or Ken does, we would roll them we would give them the DODAF component framework add-on. So we have 2 of those in reserve, and we let them go on an as-needed basis. Okay. Now Sparks is a different story. Sparks Enterprise Architect we have 20 licenses for, and a large majority of these licenses came as part of the Doreen Evans acquisition. But here we see where those things have been sprinkled across the company, and a lot of those have been are assigned to the business analysis practice as well as the enterprise architecture practice, because we have folks that sit in both. For example, James Wong does, Doug Jackson certainly does, Eric Shin certainly does. So the thing about System Architect is it's a niche player. If you look at its ability to execute and the rating of its completeness and vision, it's kind of in that lower left-hand quadrant tier, and I think it's there for a reason. The question is why. And we're going to go into that. We do have Microsoft Visio to support. We have 25 licenses. It's not rated in the quadrant. It does integrate with IBM System Architect, and we do use it to create BMPN models, network architecture models, generic process modeling. I use it for everything. Synergy workflows, Active Directory. So it provides us unquestioned value. System Architect is very expensive. That's why we only had 5. The 5 user license cost us near $20,000. Okay. The Sparks product is dramatically cheaper. So let's go ahead and take a look at the vendor analysis. Okay. So the strengths of IBM System Architect. Okay. IBM really is, they're several years into their multi-year product delivery strategy and the commercialization of the Rational Jazz platform and the integration of portfolio analysis into the tool, okay? IBM it's a great collaboration utility. It has a reporting and dashboard and an analytics capability, okay? It's got some strengths. And on the flip end side, it's great within the global marketplace. The sales and support is available everywhere simply because of the size of IBM. Sparks doesn't have that. Sparks, it's a criticism of Sparks because it's an Australian-based company, and when you call for tech support, you get a recording as opposed to a human being, and you may get a response to an email. So as strengths, under the weaknesses, it's extremely complex, okay? It's extremely complex. It's a very difficult upgrade path. You know, we needed a DODAF framework model. Oh, you have to buy the add-on for that. It's expensive. But it is, in many cases, the system of record for many of our government agencies, okay? That's a weakness for us because we only have 5 licenses for it. Think about it from that perspective, okay? Customers are encouraged to weigh the pros and cons and really kind of thinking about it in kind of from a system architect, design manager is a new component of the tool that's meant to overcome some of those concerns. There is a steep learning curve. It's a very technical, very complex process. It's challenging to learn and it's challenging to administrate. Okay, I can attest to that, having been using it down in Montgomery. But the value that you can get out of the tool once you've got some tactical expertise with it is unquestioned. IBM's global coverage support does not always indicate that the prices. So we've seen some problems with when we acquired the DODAF framework model. They wanted to know where we were delivering it. I was like, what does that matter? And he goes, well, depending on where you're delivering it, tells you how much we're going to sell it for. So and where are you headquartered? We were delivering it in Montgomery, so we had to pay the southern rates, believe it or not. So there are some weaknesses in the tool, but the tool is unquestioned as a market leader, and it clearly provides IBM. It really provides them with a market-leading capability, which is why they kind of fall within the quadrant that they do. Okay, let's look at Enterprise Architect strengths. Spark is pretty neat. It's based on it's an open standards base. It's a low license cost is pretty achievable, which is probably why we have 20 licenses for it. And as a smaller business with a revenue stream of about $5 to $7 million, Doreen had invested pretty heavily in it. Okay, there's a broader EA capability, and there's functionality that's commonly required for software engineers. And as you can see, they really highlight one of the components of its use for requirements management and requirements engineering. Probably why it was heavily used within the DEA, okay? Sparks has expanded its service offering, and as an enterprise architect with plug-and-play capabilities and some cloud-based configurations that haven't been the most successful to date, but they are looking to kind of lead the market in that regard. We have used it on a couple of our engagements, and James Wong has, for example, done some of the cloud computing, used their cloud version with mixed reviews. Okay. In terms of weaknesses, the weaknesses are exactly what you would think. As an Australian company, technical support sometimes doesn't come at all if it comes at a cost. Technical support is usually provided by email, which leads to longer turnaround times. Okay. It's got a limited number of sister companies, and those companies predominantly focus on training partners. Insufficient training support is sometimes not always available in those regions. So does anybody have any questions about the tools that we have at our display? That we have the tools that we have at our disposal, how we license them, who we give access to the tools for, and how we make that decision process. Does anyone have any questions?
There's no questions right now. Okay.
Okay, we're going to go on to the EA members' customer-facing initiatives. We'll kind of go through these kind of quick, and I'll give a lot of kudos out.
I spoke too soon, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Is Sparks the primary program that RG sees us using if DODAF isn't required?
It would depend on your customer. If you're using a TOGAF, if you need a TOGAF model, yeah, maybe we could. I don't think that it's a low-cost tool. Right now, low-cost tools fit within our pricing strategy. So I would think so. If we were talking the other day about a creative way where we can acquire maybe 5 to 10 more licenses through the GSA program. GSA themselves needs access to this product. We're like, all right, we can buy it and provide it to our employees that are there, but they can pay us for it. So we're always looking for tactical new ways to increase. And I think what's going to drive that decision is going to be the customer. The customer's needs are going to define that. Enterprise architect is not going to go away. Clearly, we get massive value from it. as long as we understand the strengths and weaknesses and we work to mitigate those risks so that we kind of don't let those things hinder our production or the effectiveness of our solution delivery.
One more question?
Yep.
Two more questions, actually. The first one is, how does Atego, if I'm A-T-E-G-O, fit into the tool set?
Atego is very expensive, and Atego is something we have a partnership with. When we would bid on the Transcom proposal, Atego software, we do not own the license. We do not own a license for it, but we have a business relationship and partnership with them, and we drag them into any of the larger bids that we go after. For example, in Transcom, they replaced Sam Holkman on our team, and they utilized their, one of the reasons why we lost that program was we didn't have a disciplined software-based tool for the creation of DODAF models at the time. They took all of our models that we had done in Visio, and they did the best thing we could. We had 11 critical deficiencies. We were able to, in 2 days, we were able to eliminate all of them, but we couldn't get to one, which led to the loss of that, and I'll take the heat for that. So we still maintain the relationship with Atego, and they're also serving as a governing body for a full-fledged DODAF certification strategy, which we're going to kind of talk a little bit later in the training education component. But we do not own their software, but I can get it at a moment's notice. We've got a great relationship with them. One of the folks from Atego Software, Matthew, served on last year's GPS panel with us and spoke. He's actually responsible for running the DODAF and MODAF working group, which leads for the integration of business systems across with Great Britain, the United States, and the military. So that's where Atego fits in. There was a third question? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, once we understand these concepts and we educate our people, do we have a plan or a path, or what are we going to do to educate them on the tools that you're talking about?
Okay, so just yesterday, it's a great question. Just yesterday, we conducted a brown bag unrelated to enterprise architecture, but we did it for the Virtual Program Management Office and Project Server. We would utilize a very similar construct to educate our folks in the use of Sparks and best practices. Nate Briard, for example, when he did his DODAF modeling, I know that he utilized some of the components of System Architect to do that. But we will probably provide additional brown bag training as it relates to the use of these specific tools as we get into the second and third quarter, okay? I'm really looking to get the foundational constructs of what practice management is and within the practice, and then build on top of that. One of the things in the practice management slides, I said I wanted a minimum of 5 for tier 1s. I'm going to have more than 5 in EA. And we will be focusing on providing some illustrated value and use of even Visio. I can make Visio do some pretty cool things, and it's, you know, it kind of, so we'll probably hold some of those. But that's going to be scary because people are going to be in my mind at that point, and that's not a good thing. So, but we will do some of those, and that's kind of what we'll do. We've got challenges there specifically as it relates to our geographical dispersion. We'll actually be holding some brown bags at night, for example. We're going to record these and put them in Synergy. So you don't have to feel like you have to be at home to view these things or be part of it. You can actually use and spend your time doing it as needed. Any other questions before I go?
No other questions. Thank you.
Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about our customer-facing initiatives and kind of where they sit. Air Force Civil Engineering for Next Gen. We've got 3 and 2 certified architects. I say 3 and 2 because I've got billable hours on the contract, but it's pretty small, and it's basically just for administrative, I wouldn't say administrative support, but maybe thought leadership would be a good word, and helping with some tactical delivery strategy. But it's really Chris Samolsky and Nate Briard who are leading that charge down in Montgomery. I had kicked off the project, but I've got probably a 15% billability target that I can use as needed to support that organization. We've got 3 certified architects. Actually, I only list 2, but Caroline Colbert has also moved over to Army National Guard because they've seen a greater value and need for enterprise architects. So Sean Fairweather and Eric Shin are delivering and maintain billability. Sean Fairweather is 100% billable. Eric Shin is 50% billable, which is great because he's covered while we're waiting for the release of the next phase of SBIR. And Caroline is cutting her teeth. She's one of our newly certified EAs, a member of our, she's a member of our T program. She comes in with a lot of great experience, but this is an opportunity for her to get some tactical delivery experience utilizing enterprise architecture. Ken Boris and Jim Yu. Jim Yu is actually they're both certified. Ken Boris is probably doing more enterprise architecture related activities on the program, and Jim Yu as a practice manager is permitting the development and the usage of enterprise architecture disciplines from an executive level. Al McCall is actually he's working on 2 different engagements, one with the ESOC program at Commerce and one with ICE, maintaining a high 90% billability ratio, and he's constantly introducing enterprise architecture disciplines as they relate to cybersecurity, and he will be delivering a joint brown bag or an integration brown bag between enterprise architecture and cybersecurity. American Fidelity and Customer Enforcement, that's a typo. How would we just go American Fidelity? Deleted that. Sorry, folks, I'm making a change on the fly here. And that should be Customs Enforcement. And we'll get rid of ICE. Everyone makes mistakes. Okay. But Meryl is working on the second phase of the American Fidelity program, maintaining a 44% billability ratio, but she's also developing internally. So when her time is not spent, and she's going to get into that a little bit later with Eric Shin when we talk about the new things we're delivering for the training and education. And then we have Jim Vincent, who's one of the first members of the certification program, who's now 100% billable at the Defense Logistics Agency, bringing EA into the customer there, who is actually formerly he's one of our customers from the Air Force. So I think this really illustrates the value proposition that the Enterprise Architecture Certification Program has brought to the business. These current engagement values are based on an annual basis. Some of them are smaller as we're getting the Department of Commerce, the big VPA that we have with them off the ground, and obviously we've got our Defense Point relationship with ICE. But I thought you guys would like to see where some of the folks are actually tactically delivering some of these skills for our customers. Okay. Does anyone have any questions regarding that? Where those folks sit and what they're doing? Okay. I consider this yellow from the simple perspective, we don't do it enough, we need a bigger, more robust pipeline. It's that simple, okay? For the Air Force, Christopher, myself, Mike Comedy, Eric Shin, and Chris Samolsky, we are all tag teaming at any given point in time elements of solution design and technical oversight for civil engineering and Next Gen's recompete, the PDMSS recompete, and the new MROI proposal that we're going after and we're chasing in the Air Force. Okay, we can only do sales support when we have the opportunities identified within the pipeline that we're chasing. Okay, Customs and Border Protection, Alan Carpenter and I are working on a new solution and a concept development for the next generation of our ACE project. Okay, GSA, Alan Carpenter, myself, and Jim Yu. I've got billable hours, and I'll be doing work over at GSA and the IAE program. In the next several weeks, we're going to be meeting and talking about that, but we're actually doing not only solution design, technical oversight, but we're also delivering tactical delivery of EA disciplines there, okay? CMS has approached us to help with the system selection and identification, so we're really considering that a concept development opportunity for us from a sales supports perspective, which is how to identify system selection and what service offerings would we like to use for requirements, solicitation, development, analysis of alternatives, so on and so forth. Michigan DMV, Alan Carpenter and I are set to go up to Michigan and see and kind of peek under the hood, if you will, see what they're going and see what concepts we can develop for the future use of our tools. And Alan Carpenter, myself, and Eric Shin. Eric Shin's really done the majority of the work. I started some of the stuff initially, but I turned that over to him for FirstNet, all concept development. And Meryl's really carried the majority of the heavy lift on American Fidelity. I had done the original solution design, but she's been managing and maintaining that solution, as well as providing tactical delivery expertise for the customer down in Oklahoma City. Okay. that gives you a small snapshot of what we're doing and what we're supporting and how we're supporting the growth of the business, okay? Key ongoing internal programs. We're going to kind of go through some of these. It's not my intention to discuss the bottom three in detail today, but I wanted to give you guys a status and update on them. Again, solution design and customization in our training and education programs. Our BOA, I'm throwing a caution flag there simply because of the resources that we have, and we have so much going on. Synergy 2.0, we're about 60% complete with the transition, but we're kind of in a holding pattern as it relates to Synergy because of the Deltek upgrades. We have a concept and a method for delivering new reporting capabilities. I can't build new reporting capabilities on top of an old, antiquated financial system. So Synergy 2.0 is kind of hit. We've pressed pause, and we've taken some of the resources working on that to integrate ArtGov Access and create some new capabilities. We're just reprioritizing what's left in Synergy 2.0 as a result. We've also kicked off the Salesforce.com initiative to kind of reconstitute that system and kind of scale it back, so that it's also going to be able to be integrated into a new financial analysis tool for the business. It's about 35% complete. Most recently, we met with our preferred vendor who's helping us get that off the ground yesterday. Okay, so we got great things coming there. Solution design and customization. If any of you guys, we've had 80 people in the company that have been trained in solution design, but for those individuals who have heard about it and we're hoping to get some more information, I'm going to give you guys a few slides on that. Solution design and customization represents the cornerstone elements of our corporate go-to-market strategy, and you've seen what I'm going to show you guys from Brad's town halls, okay? It is the third prioritized process initiative within our strategic plan. This is a graphical illustration of where that strategic plan sits. So if you look at the third prioritized initiative here, S design campaign, that's solution design and campaign and practice management. We're leveraging the tactic to institutionalize solution design to maintain and foster the development of the solution-first culture. And we're also institutionalizing campaign management via solution design, okay? So it's a very critical need for us. If we do not institutionalize, if we do not execute on the tactic, we will not be able to drive the value to the business that we need, okay? It empowers two of our core enabling concepts from Brad's overall strategy. So let's take a look at that. To become the greatest services company in our chosen markets, you've all seen it, okay? The reason why solution first and simplicity are on the bottom, because they're the cornerstones. They're the thing that everything else depends on, okay? So we like to think of that as they're the two foundational things. He's nodding. I'm going to say he's going to swear to it later. But by and large, that's why solution design is so darn important. And we're going to look at why now. So it really comes down to empowering simplicity, guys. Now Brad talks. We both have the shared vision, but we use different vernaculars when communicating some things. So I think of simplicity from a very technical perspective. Metcalfe's Law, we talked about this from the PMP training. We talked about tying PMP training to enterprise architecture certification. Metcalfe's Law is about leveling complexity, okay? It's a mathematical equation that is used when you're developing large, complex network infrastructures. It's really how we're trying to take 65 service offerings within 13 practice areas, drive them through the development of capability areas into one solution for a customer. It's about narrowing the scope for focused solution delivery. If you deliver 1/65 of your strength, you're not leveraging a go-to-market strategy we want within the business. We've got to go to market together, and we want to go to market with our capability areas, which we are changing. We're now a year and a half in, so we're going to be retiring a couple of the capability areas and replacing them with new things from ArtGov Access and other pending acquisitions. But we're eating our own dog food, and we're seeing tremendous value in the business as a result, okay? When we narrow the scope for focused solution delivery, we're really talking about it creating clarity, focus, effectiveness, streamlined implementations, as well as expedited delivery of meaningful results. That's critical. Expedited delivery. If you do not provide your customers with good news faster, I promise you somebody will try to create bad news for you. And that's why Rick Gopsuk was able to take people's funding. He's going to love that quote, by the way. Anyway, so moving along, solution design program, we've got capability frameworks and solution frameworks. okay? It's a 2-day training program backed by the power of the firm. We've had 43 people play an integral role in developing the corporate framework, maintaining the corporate framework, as well as defining the solutions. We've got security provisions in place to guard against the loss of our go-to-market materials. They are posted on Synergy 2.0. And we have created practical exercise to drive home the go-to-market solution concept. And we have seen an increased ROI on the use of the training space over at PI. We've trained 80 employees as of March 15th, but this is where the value proposition is, folks. When we think back over the couple of years, Robbins-Joya has been through a lot of changes. And the question that we were constantly being asked is, what is our go-to-market strategy? How are we going to market? What are we doing? So we asked some questions after the training course. These represent the 4 core evaluation elements for the training course. How would you rate your knowledge of our go-to-market strategy before and after training? How would you rate your understanding of the difference between service offerings from solutions? How would you rate your understanding of our new capability areas? And how would you rate your understanding of how the corporate framework influences our new solutions? After putting 80 people through, this is where we were, okay? And this is most recent as of March 6th. When 20% of your organization doesn't understand what your go-to-market strategy is, that's a bad thing. After training, we've got 80 people are in the high side. 92% of the people that have gone through now have a high degree of competency or a high degree of competency of what our go-to-market strategy is. Service offerings versus solution, 94% from 18. It really illustrates how it is in some ways leading the charge for the transformation of the business in terms of where we're going from a go-to-market strategy, okay? And this is only going to be increased because one of the things we're looking at right now, we want to do another 60 employees in 2015. But right now, we're looking to expand our frameworks to integrate critical capability acquired from Argov Access. If we look historically at Robbins-Joya, we acquired a company out of Charlotte, and we really did nothing to integrate them into the business. And after 4 or 5 years, every customer that came with that acquisition is gone. So we must integrate the critical capabilities that have been acquired from Argov Access into the framework. And we must simplify our frameworks by eliminating the service offerings which our customers are not asking for. And that's what the disciplined element of enterprise architecture, as we're using it to develop the solution frameworks, that's the value that it's going to be for the business. We're not going to allow the business to maintain a stale posture, okay? I think the numbers speak for themselves, and they're pretty good. Does anybody have any questions about solution design and customization? Okay. Employee development and support. Practice management has kicked off an educational brown bag series. There are 28 brown bags that cross 13 different practice areas. There's an EA-based training program in support the PI go-to-market strategy, okay? And then we also have enterprise architecture practice reviews. This is the first one. It's the spring state of the practice presentation today. The fall state of the practice presentation is October 14th. It's already scheduled, and it's in an integrated master schedule that we're managing to. Okay? The hallway conversations never happen anymore, so we have to become and use the virtual program management office to have a more disciplined and rigorous method for managing what we do. Okay? From a brown bag perspective, we have executed and delivered the DODAP modeling brown bag with Nate Briard. Bridging the gap between EA and BA is slated for the 14th of next month. Al McColl is doing the cybersecurity and EA framework brown bag. Then we've got Ken Boris, who went through a training course in the fall for TOGAF. He's being asked to bring that expertise that he learned and share it with the masses. I'd love to be able to send 30 people through TOGAF training. We just simply can't as a business. And very few businesses can, by the way. This stuff is very expensive. And then we're doing 2 conferences where Meryl and Eric Shin are going to go back and bring back more relevant, timely and relevant market information from some of those things. So at this point, I'm going to drink some water, maybe a little coffee, but I'm going to press pause and I'm going to turn this over to Eric and Meryl, and they're going to talk to you a little bit more about the training program that we're building for the Performance Institute. Okay? You're going to have to unmute them if you got them.
I think we're good, Chris.
Okie dokie.
Meryl, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Is somebody ready to drive for me?
Yep, I got you. Just give me an audible so I can hit the down arrow.
Okay, perfect. So for the Enterprise Architecture Training Program, like Chris said, this is an initiative tied to the strategic goals set by Brad that he gave to the executive directors for 2015. And so we're just trying to deliver on that, and also that supporting PI by preparing a training program that Diane Denholm can sell that we'll present at PI. So go to the next slide. Next. Great. So what this graphic is illustrating is two of the, or really the overarching goal of this, which is there are two facets to it. So internally, continuing to drink our own Kool-Aid with enterprise architecture and to continue to invest in training our own people. We want to create advocates, experts, and trusted advisors by kind of going through this, this training process. When I talk about advocates, we want RGers who understand the value of enterprise architecture and who will champion it in their day-to-day activities, both internally and with their client-facing engagements. We also want to develop experts. So like Chris said, developing with that talent matrix, we want to continue to grow the EA practice, and this is one of the ways that we're going to continue to do that, is by this internal training. We also want to create trusted advisors. So we don't just want experts that are functioning in their day-to-day capacity. We want people that the clients will rely on and continue to come to for advice and see as true experts in this field, and so we want to create that as well. Externally facing, to continue to establish our position as a thought leader for enterprise architecture and to continue to develop a stance going beyond that kind of core project management, really developing our presence as a player in enterprise architecture. As external people go through this program, we want to develop ambassadors, so people that will take enterprise architecture back to their business and evangelize a little bit to really speak to the power and the value of enterprise architecture at the enterprise that they've come from. We also want supporters, and so not just supporters of RG, but people who will support an EA project in their enterprise, either as a project member or as an executive sponsor. And having that internal support when an enterprise project is going on is so key, and so we want to really foster that as well. We also want to develop allies. And so these are people that will seek out RG as a source of those trusted advisors that we'll be building internally. And so these two facets will really support each other moving forward as we train both internally and externally. So next slide.
Okay, this slide is essentially a presentation of how we structured this class, and then also kind of the principal themes that, the way I describe it, the themes that derive what we're trying to achieve from the class. So based on the overview, the 5 major areas we've kind of structured it around are what is enterprise architecture, and this is where we go into the definition of enterprise architecture, what enterprise architecture is and what it does, what it provides, and the negatives, what it does not do. There's a lot of misconceptions out there as far as what exactly EA is, so we want to make that clear from the get-go. And then we discuss why would anybody want to pursue enterprise architecture? What is the value proposition to an organization? The planning, enterprise architecture is a project just like any other. It requires the planning up front to make sure it's executed properly. Otherwise, there will be little to no value as a result of it. So we go through the steps that are required to initiate an EA effort. And then for the development, this is the nitty-gritty. This is what you do, feet on the ground, as you're building the enterprise architecture. And then the next steps will be what to do after you have created those documents, the artifacts, the models, all of the stuff that comes along with the enterprise architecture. How do you derive value from it? And then the names listed next to each category are the people who were involved with both the development of the content for the course, and then will also be in some ways responsible for presenting it. We're not completely positive on all of that yet, but clearly we've included a number of individuals so that we can kind of hopefully leverage the power of the firm just to make it more useful and to get more perspective. And then the principal themes, if we can go ahead and bring up that section. Thank you. So our two overarching ideas. No matter how well you know something, there are details that you're not going to see. So the purpose of EA is to help illuminate those details that you're going to overlook. And then the second point is having a blueprint is critical to successful implementation of a change. You can't change anything unless you know how it's going to affect the organization. Now, this course is going to be delivered in a couple of formats, as Meryl spoke to on the last slide. We're going to have both an internal and an external training. It'll be single or multi-day format. We're still trying to kind of iron those details out as well. But at this point, we have the content slides fairly well developed. So we have over 100, and these are based on industry and delivery best practices, along with the integration of enterprise architecture and business architecture, which is something that we've branded as the EA2, which I'm sure most people have heard about. And if you haven't, do some research, please. And then next slide. And then I think Meryl was going to speak to this.
I started talking, had my mute on, sorry. Okay. So Eric just kind of went over that dual track training program, but the course objectives, these are kind of those little bullets kind of underneath the portal on our graphic. But really, these are the ways that we'll connect sort of the meat of our of the presentation back to those roles. So with this understanding the core principles of enterprise architecture, that's how we'll create our experts and supporters. By developing the understanding of the value of enterprise architecture, we'll be able to create advocates and ambassadors. And by understanding that continued value, which I think is really potentially one of the most important aspects of this, because so many people seem to see enterprise architecture as something that sits on the shelf, and it's something that often does just sit on the shelf. Deriving that continued value is how we will set ourselves apart as trusted advisors and also develop those allies. So that's all I have. So if there's any questions.
I haven't had any questions come in.
Okay, so that really kind of cuts through and captures the essence of what the training program that we're developing to support Brad's initiatives for the Performance Institute. It's just one illustration of how practice management is really helping PI go to market. Again, we are doing the development of other course curriculums for them as well. We're kind of getting near towards the end, so if you guys have questions, now's the time to start pumping them through to Lindsay, but we're going to take a quick look. Everyone knows that I'm a big fan of timelines. Hate project schedules, but man, the generals love this stuff. Breaking it down into a graphical illustration of where we sit. Each one of our brown bags exists on this timeline, as well as our quarterly board reporting responsibilities, as well as different releases that we've done with the DODAF framework presentations, as well as our the period that we spent planning for 2015. Okay, we've got soft dates for 9/24 and 2/11 for our board reports and status. Those are soft dates because, frankly, we haven't set the dates for those board meetings yet. But those board meetings, those dates are integrated across every one of our practice areas, and the requirements are to provide annual or 4 times a year, so quad annual, if that's a word, reports. Okay, but you'll see that the next brown bag is going to be Bridging the Gap, followed by Cyber and EA Framework, TOGAF, and then Conference 1 and 2, and then we kind of go into a reevaluation period during the fall and then launch into 2016. And we're really hoping that we do that with a lot more resources to spend. So we consider the schedule pretty robust. We consider it pretty strong. We're tracking to it weekly. I wouldn't say daily, but certainly weekly. And it is available through the Virtual Program Management Office. Okay. Risks and mitigations. Before I get to the risks and mitigations, are there any questions? We've given you guys a lot of data. And I've had a lot of coffee, but Are there any questions that specifically relate to what you guys have seen that people have not had a chance to ask?
I have a question. Do we have any self-study resources that exist or that you can recommend for anybody who wants to increase their EA skills?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in one slide. Yes, there's two ways we're going to attack that. First and foremost, the answer is yes. We do have some stuff, and we are kicking off. It's one of the mitigation points and risk and mitigations on the next slide. Merrill's been kind of leading an effort to consolidate practice-related materials for the new Synergy 2.0 site. And we'll be releasing those in the second quarter. But in addition to that, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to record dry runs of the actual delivery of our PI-based training for our own people. Not everyone's going to have the luxury of flying to Washington and attending a PI the PI class themselves. So we will utilize our learning management system and kind of what we're doing today. The reason why it's critical, if you look at, let's go back and look at their course overview. What Eric and Merrill actually did here was they identified the individuals who are going to be responsible for delivering the subcomponent portions of our training. So Merrill lives in California and sometimes in Oklahoma City. Nate Briard is down in Oklahoma City. Eric Shin and I are here. We'll be doing this stuff and recording them for use to serve as a self-study method for those individuals who we cannot afford to fly into Washington. But it doesn't mean we're going to stop going to see people either. We did a solution design training class for every member of the team out in Utah. We're going to continue to do that as time permits. But we will have more things available in coming weeks. So yes, that is something that's out there. Okay.
I have one more question related to that. Will the PI course qualify somebody to become billable on an engagement?
Sure. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the ways that at the end of the year when you go through your reevaluation, you're gonna be considered to have a stronger competency when you actually, we can increase your competency level on the service offerings once you understand what enterprise architecture is. Therefore, as the opportunities become available, we'll have more people to slot. It's how we're going to get from having 14% of our people in the quadrant range of 7 to 10 as opposed to I want to have 30 or 60 people like we've talked about. Our goal is to double that within the next year. That's only going to happen through the disciplined, rigorous delivery of training and also some external certification assets that we're using. We're going to put a couple more folks through the EACOE-based program based upon the evaluation questionnaire from the fall. We kept all the data, so we're going down that list, and we've done one member of our T candidate, and it's instantly providing value because she's now doing billable work and cutting her teeth over at Army National Guard. So there's unquestioned value there. So, but the answer is yes. We'll qualify you to do more work in different areas. Yeah.
I have another question.
Okay.
Are there dates established for the solution design course in 2015?
Yes, the next solution design course, I believe, is in the end of July. We're kicking off the solution design reviews with all of the folks tomorrow. The next class will be in July. So after the end of this month, you'll be getting some if you're on site somewhere, you'll be pulsed by your executive directors, and they will be providing me with the next set of names because we want to do 60 more per this presentation. That list is going to come from the executive directors. If you're interested in doing solution design and developing capability, I would encourage you to reach out to your executive director so that they understand that you want to be part of Robbins-Joyce's future and the growth strategies that we're doing. Again, the hallway conversations don't happen. I'd love for you, email me if you want, but really it comes down to your executive directors have to be able to clear the time for you to do that. So I'll take anybody. I don't turn anybody away, but coordinate it with your executive directors, and then they're going to prioritize who comes and when they come. But we've got 60 more people that we're doing this year.
Okay.
Yes.
No more questions at this time.
Okay. How do we do on time?
20 to 1.
That's not bad.
No one has left. Everyone's still here, so.
We didn't scare anyone away?
I didn't fall asleep.
All right, why don't you go ahead and unmute people? Maybe we can see if there's some dogs barking or something out there.
Are we doing the board meeting in here?
Right in here. I'm going right to the next one.
Okay.
Okay, so real quickly, guys, we've got our board meeting, and it's an annual call that starts at 1, but I wanted to give anybody an opportunity for comments. I would just ask that you maybe raise your hand on, or we've got like 60 people on the phone, so if you're going to holler, holler loud.
I did have a request for more music.
Okay, well, probably not going to be able to deliver on that just yet. But in all seriousness, does anybody have any comments about this state of the practice presentation? I will be sending out an evaluation of myself, as well as the content that we've created today. Look for that in the next day or so. We have to get through the gauntlet of the board meeting and everything today, but you will have an opportunity. Anyone who logged in to this is going to get a copy and the ability to rate kind of where we are and as we've done with most of the things that we do within practice management. It's about we can't get better if you guys do not talk to us. And believe me, I'll talk to anybody. So any other comments, questions, points of order before Brad and I adjourn, and thank Lindsay for her moderation today.
I had a request if you could go to the risk slide.
Sure. Oh, the risk slide. Sorry about that. Yeah. So externally focused. I had identified. Let's go back a few. I had identified. So sales support activities. Man, we do a lot of work, but we're not doing enough. Okay, that was this slide here. Sales support activities. We can only do more if more opportunities come into our pipeline. So from a risk perspective, if I want to turn that yellow to green, it's really going to require us to have more opportunities in the pipeline. Let me go back to that. Sorry about that, folks. We may want to make an investment in some additional tools to bridge the gaps in strengths and weaknesses. We know that there are tools out there, but a lot of that will come based upon organizational needs. For example, we did have a relationship with Blueprint that was required for American Fidelity. But with the first phase of that, the usage of that tool transitioned over to them. So we do leverage a just-in-time philosophy as it relates to those. Internally focusing, we've talked about the need for more self-based training. Content refresh is underway within the EA practice site. Meryl's taking a lead on kind of consolidating a lot of that information for us. And we are taking strides to address the concerns of internal program constraints, and that would be Synergy 2.0, everything that falls under that back office application architecture. It's just a matter of trying to get more capabilities. I want to say something about that. That would be a great way for people that want to have and develop new skills. If you want to get involved in supporting an internal project, there's no better way to develop capabilities than to do it real time. Reach out to myself, reach out to James Wong. We're building these models to understand the business processes and to support not only the expansion of our CMMI Level 2 certification to Level 3, but we do not have to wait for customers to pay us to do it. We're constantly looking for people to get involved in moving this business forward.
Are you done?
So if you're interested in being part of some of those internal programs, we can certainly make the investment in you as employees in that capacity to work with us. Okay? That's how we'll address some of those internal constraints. We don't have enough bodies, so we'd love to have some more players in the pond with us. Any other questions?
Nothing in the chat.
All right. Anyone else have anything on the phone? Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. We will download this, post it on Synergy, and we will be sending out the evaluation survey in the next couple of days. Thanks for coming in. Meryl, Eric, thank you.